Knock, knock. No, I guess you can't say. So I'll play both. Knock, knock. Who's there? SmartLess. SmartLess who? It's an all-new SmartLess.
SmartLess.
I realized that I think that I curse too much.
You do?
Oh.
Yeah.
What are you fucking talking about?
There we go.
Wait, really? Why do you say that? I don't think you do.
Because don't you think I do? I feel like I do. No. It just occurred to me that I feel like I curse too much, and maybe
I disagree.
I think not enough.
Why did you get that feeling? Because you were hanging out with your dad and you caught yourself a couple of times? No, truly. Like, where did this thought come from? Your kids are old enough.
I think I was talking about hockey with somebody the other day, and I realized that especially when I talk about hockey, I'm like, these fucking guys, and look at this fucking team, and blah blah blah. And I was like, wait, how often do I say? And I saw this review of some gadget that somebody that they've just released, some AI gadget that documents the words that you say throughout the course of a day or a week or a month, et cetera. And this woman was talking about how much she had heard she was cursing, and I was like, I wonder how much I curse.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit.
It used to be if I got nervous, I used to swear a lot. The very first time I met Steven Spielberg in his office.
Oh, no.
All I did, every other word was fuck.
What?
I was like, yeah, and his kids were playing video games. I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. When did you fucking get that? That's fucking amazing. I couldn't stop saying
I remember I once had the guy who wrote and directed, I think he wrote, but he definitely directed Napoleon Dynamite. This guy Jared Hess, he's a great director.
Great. Yeah, amazing. He's great.
And I got a meeting with him just after Napoleon Dynamite. I was so excited. And I get lazy with cursing as just like sort of like a way to bond,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, right.
And so I'm just like, every word is this and that fucking blah, blah, blah. And I'm driving home and I call my agent. I say, oh, the meeting went really, really well. And he goes, I was going to say something. I was wondering if it did, because I know your family lived in Salt Lake City for a few years, and I was wondering if your family had any Mormonism in their background. Did you guys talk about Mormon? Because he's a big Mormon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I'm like, oh. No, because then I started then I was flashing back to the meeting. So I'm driving home like, yeah, he didn't say anything that was off color. And of course, I never heard from this guy again.
To this day, have you spoken to him?
To this day, no. I probably was just deeply offensive to him.
That's so funny.
We got to get him on here and ask him about that.
Yeah,
I'm sure he didn't even notice.
Well, I don't know.
That's funny.
I tell you what.
This is the segue, Sean. This is segue.
Incredible. It's so smooth.
This segue. And my guest is, we all like cool things, and we like feeling like that we're part of, that we're up on culture, that we're up on what's going on in the world. This is a guy who's been not only at the forefront, but I think I would dare to say been shaping it for many years. He happens to be
Jan Wenner.
Oh,
he happens to be from my home. It's not
Canada.
Well, Jan Wenner is not Canadian.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure that Jan Wenner is not Canadian.
Okay.
You didn't know him when he was in Canada, but he'd started a magazine in 1973 called the Canadian Review that was very popular. He then moved to the States, and he worked for Time Magazine. He worked for a bunch of other things,
Carter.
Life Magazine. And then in 1986, he co-founded a very, very popular and influential magazine known as Spy Magazine.
This is not Graydon Carter?
Left that in great shape.
It
He
is
went on
Graydon
to
Carter.
become, over 25 years, the editor of Vanity Fair. He's got
Yay.
a new book coming out called When the Going Was Good, Guys. It's Graydon Carter.
Nice. Good morning, sir. I read the airmail email this morning.
bless you.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's you didn't mention airmail, Willie.
I know. Well, I was about to get to airmail because you kept saying Graydon Carter, so I was like trying to get through it. And
This is an awesome guest.
I know.
Yeah.
Nice going, Will.
Welcome, Graydon. And I mentioned all the various things that you did, that you started. You started as a young writer, and you founded him. How old were you when you founded the Canadian Review? What was that in 1973?
It was like 23. I was 23.
Wow.
That takes a lot of, I was going to say guts, but it takes a lot of chutzpah to start a magazine when you're 23 years old.
Wow. How do you
right?
even go? How do you even start?
How do you get there?
How do you know where to start?
I actually didn't start it. I bumped into a bunch of guys who were starting it in college, and they needed an art director. And I said, well, I can draw. And they said, well, why don't you be the art director? And then little magazines are just festering pits of bitterness and jealousy and envy, and so one by one they all left, and then I became the editor, and it wasn't as good as Will was pointing out, and he was being very kind about it. Nobody knew what they were doing, and that was completely evident to readers and advertisers that we were completely incompetent. But it did lead to a job at Time Magazine, when Time Magazine was like probably one of the most important magazines on the planet.
Yeah. And what did you do there at Time?
I was a writer, but it was this is 1978. The city was still teetering after bankruptcy and was like dangerous, and there were burnt out cars everywhere. But rents were really cheap, and I live in Greenwich Village, and my first apartment was about a block and a half away from here, and it was $200 a month, and it had high ceilings and a garden. But then when I got to Time, they were restocking it with a bunch of young writers, and there was people like Walter Isaacson, who became the great biographer. There was Michiko Kakutani, who became the chief book critic of the New York Times for 35 years. Frank Rich, who became the theater critic of the New York Times, and then the producer of Succession. Wow. And Maureen Dowd, who was there. Rick Stengler became the editor of Time. My best friend Jim Kelly, who became the editor of Time. Anyway, it was just a remarkable period, and we were all still, keep in touch with each other. And
wow,
it was very intimidating for me, because I thought, wait a minute, are all Americans this smart? And thankfully, they're not.
Well, that's true. You're talking to three of them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, 2.5.
No, you guys are the smartest.
That's amazing.
And so you work at Time Magazine with all this great talent, and then you and Kurt Anderson form Spy Magazine, which, boy, I remember Spy Magazine, and a lot of people do. It was so, it's been described as sort of like vicious and cruel, but also like really dead on. And you somebody quoted something like, you despised all the right people.
Well, there was the time, all of a sudden in the mid-1980s, New York had sort of come alive financially, and investment banks had been sort of invented, and meant there were investment bankers around, and everybody had a lot of money, and they loved showing it off. And accidentally, I think our timing was wonderful, and we used to call it astringent rather than mean.
But that it did occupy a space of sort of, I don't know what the term might be, sort of a healthy cynicism and a like David Spade had, we've talked about it a few times on this show, he had a segment on Saturday Night Live, I think it was called the Hollywood Minute. Where, you'd kind of watch through your fingers, sort of like you didn't want to see it or hear it, but it was always so accurate and
funny.
I don't know what point I'm making, but I guess I want to say that I don't know if it's unique.
Do you feel
to
that's
this
gone
country.
or no?
No, I don't. I feel like there is a space somewhere for people having the balls to call out that which is kind of apparent to all of us, yet only discussed in quiet circles with your closest friends. Yeah. Yet everybody says it. You just don't say it in a big group. You say it in small groups. You're just calling out accuracies on people's foibles. Right. And it is interesting and maybe healthy. I guess this is the question. What do you guys think? Is it healthy to have mainstream media, to have a place in mainstream media for that type of release?
I mean, look at people like John Oliver and Seth Meyers and their news elements, and they do it better almost than they do it better than the evening news in a certain way. Sure. Not everything is objective. If you're talking about the Earth being round, you don't need somebody from the Flat Earth Society to come out and give the counter argument.
Yeah.
All right. But Jason's, I think maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe you're talking about insults?
Well, yeah, but that cynicism that exists in some corners of mainstream media, I don't know if this is fair because I'm not a student of all this, but I feel like Vulture on the New York Magazine, they sometimes, they even have like a hot radar or whatever.
Right.
They've got a term for it. And they just call out basically what everyone's talking about in sort of, I put in quotes, the cool circles. And I mention it only because it does seem to drive some pop culture successes and create some pop culture failures when it's discussed at sort of that, again in quotes, that high level, and then it sort of filters out into less cynical parts of our country and our media. It drives like what films get seen. I mean, it's sort of the theory of like having critics. You know, it's like one person says something is good, and then that starts to disseminate, and then it actually forms a wave of either success or failure for some things.
Right.
And I wonder if that is a healthy thing that we should have in media. My guess would be yes, but it's hurtful.
But at the same time, you know, like everybody on excuse me, on the internet, everybody's a critic.
Yeah.
It's a sewer by and large. But if you have people who have proper opinions and they're within the realms of accuracy, it can make a good difference, I think. And the internet, if word of mouth is the most powerful tool in the world, and the internet just lets it go exponentially rather than arithmetically.
Well, the problem is though, as with the internet and with social media, is that often some of these voices all come at the same volume that they don't deserve, and so things get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Jason, I think you were referring to the approval matrix, right? That they do,
sure.
And there was something about Spy that did that, which is it just held things up to a light and sort of brought them into focus a little bit. Things that I remember there was a piece you guys did. You probably don't even remember this, but there was a piece you did. You may have already left, but it was certainly really tonally right in line with the kind of thing that you had set forth at Spy, which was they had a woman holding a pair of rollerblades over her shoulder, and they had her go to different neighborhoods of the city to see what reactions she'd get in different reactions. So they put her on the Upper West Side, Upper East Side, Flatiron, downtown, and what people would say to her at different street corners. On the Upper East Side,
That's
guys like,
really funny.
Do you like to skate in the park? and then the Upper West Side, the guy's like, hey, you look great. Why don't you put those down? Let's go get a drink. And then in Flatiron, the guy's like, why won't you talk to me, bitch?
and Lower East Side is get the fuck out of my face.
You know what I mean? And that's the kind of thing that
is really
I
interesting.
do think that sort of thing is missing because everybody is so nervous.
Yes, that's just
about offending and also everybody is so quick to be offended, and this is going to get, I hope this will be a pull quote about me railing against people being offended. Yeah. But there was a notion back there, of like, I don't give a shit if you're offended. Who cares? Mm-hmm. You know, as long as I'm not hurting anybody or saying anything that's completely, I'm offended. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a healthy space for that too that I feel has been lacking in the last few years as we needed to make and are still working on this sort of correction for those that are marginalized. But I think the consensus is starting to come out that maybe there was an overcorrection and it's starting to come back to middle a little bit now. And so there's a healthy level of, hey, listen, offending you is part of the joke or part of this thing. And so there's some casualties that are a part of that metric.
What do you think about that shift that's going on right now, Graydon?
Will and I would know this better because we came from Canada, but the pendulum in America swings in great arcs like this. Yeah. Right. And in Britain it swings like this, and in Canada it swings like this. So America goes way out. I mean, in the 1960s, the pre-love movement was much further out in America than it was in San Francisco than it was in Toronto. But then it swings right back. So in the 1980s, the investment banker ethos was much more pronounced in New York than it was in Vancouver, say. So America is it just has larger swings, and so the extremes are greater. And I think it is coming. It will come. It's a correction from the far left. And then went way too far to the far right, and it will settle somewhere in the middle. You just hope that it does sooner rather than later.
I think it will.
And of course, nobody's advocating for the marginalization of people who are different at all, and that's never been. I think that anybody, certainly all of us, I assume none of us would ever advocate for that. But I must say, as someone, it makes sense for someone who likes to comment on culture and whose writing and whose profession is informed by that. Of course, moving to the States is a natural progression for you, right? Because
and you, yes,
and me as well, of course, yeah. Because there is that ceiling in Canada where you can only go so far. Unfortunately, it's a great place to be from. It's a great place to live. Still, I'm not suggesting anything otherwise.
Keep going, Will. Yeah, you got to put out the fire.
You're offending somebody here. Yes,
I am definitely offending. So, how far have I dug now? Can I even see the top of the hole that I'm in? I've told that story before. The difference between the Canadian lobster fishermen and the American lobster fishermen, right?
What is it?
They're walking on the road after their day of lobster fishing, and the American lobster fisherman says to the Canadian, he says, "I notice you don't have a top on your pot there, Boy. Aren't you worried about your lobsters getting out?" And the Canadian says, "No, these here are Canadian lobsters. If one of them tries to get out, the other ones will pull them back down."
That's great. That's great.
And there's an element of truth to that. But moving to the States and starting Spy Magazine, and then moving to Vanity Fair, which has an even greater audience and even a sort of a broader demographic, if you will. You must have been very excited at the prospect of kind of opening up and a huge demo to what you wanted to say and what you thought was important to talk about.
Yeah, and talk about having a piece of media that anoints week to week, or was it? I think it was month to month. Who is it? You and Lorne Michaels were basically had the two levers that existed on putting
two Canadians, by the way.
Two Canadians here.
Putting people on top of the mountain at your discretion, which was pretty incredible.
It's funny. I looking back, and I realize some of what you say it was evident to others. It never was to me. It was a matter of survival for the most part. I had a lot of children, and I had to feed them and clothe them and educate them. And so, when I got to Vancouver, I was the least popular person to get there because we had spent 5 years at Spy making fun of the editor, of the house writing style, of many of the contributors. So when I walked in, it was funereal, the whole mood of the place. And I didn't fire anybody for 2 years, but eventually some of the people were left over just to talk about my inadequacies as they went around to dinner parties in New York. And so but I let everybody stay for 2 years, and I thought I'd give them a chance to come around my way of thinking. And then I got rid of these 3 troublemakers in 1 week after being there for 2 years. And all of a sudden it shifted, and I could bring my children into the office. It wasn't as poisonous, and people started saying thank you and please and working together in a collegial way. And because I don't like office drama, I like people to work together. I think you get something better out of it. And then I sort of built it from there. And I was fortunate to have one of the great owners, Cy Newhouse, who gave me the tools to succeed. He gave me the budget so I could bring in I thought it must have been the greatest stable of writers ever. The first writer I brought in was Christopher Hitchens.
Wow.
And
he's great.
Oh, he was heaven. And then also I had photographers like Annie Leibovitz and Helmut Newton and Bruce Weber. So I was blessed by having these incredible colleagues, and I was so appreciative of what they did, because taking pictures and writing stories is a lot harder work than being an editor. You're just sort of a wage ape and kind of like a cross between a chef and an air traffic controller, and a piece of mold just on your ceiling. We don't really have a point, but other than trying to assemble the thing each month. And anyway, it was a great perch during one of the greatest periods. But by the same token, it was a golden age of magazines. But one of the reasons, anytime you have a golden age, it's a golden age because everybody is good. So every other editor was firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
All magazines were good in the 1980s and 90s. It was an extraordinary period. And also the magazine business attracted the best and the brightest then.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we will be right back.
And now back to the show.
What was your ethos then when you got there at Vanity Fair, when you sat behind your desk for the first time in those first couple of years and going forward? What was your did you have an objective, like this is the kind of stuff that I want to do? Did you have something like that, a plan in mind in a way?
Nothing so formal, but a sort of an evolving thought that what I wanted to do is every month present the reader with something that is highly, highly compelling that they'll read with and have wonderful stories that could range 15 or 20,000 words, which is the fifth of the size of an average book. And that they would come back the next month. I used to write thank you notes to all my contributors every month. Thank you notes to our advertisers who paid for the journalism. The advertising came in at about $100,000 a page, and that sort of paid for the heat and the light and the electricity. And but then there was I got other ideas that really changed the direction of the magazine. From David Halberstam to create something called the New Establishment, which is in the past, the establishment was the head of General Tire and General Motors and a bunch of New York banks, but in the early mid 1990s, America became an entertainment culture and economy, and so what we shipped around the world weren't cars and tires and things like that. It was intellectual property in terms of like video games and movies and television shows and magazines and technology. And so we did a huge portfolio that Annie shot, and it sort of showed the world that because there was a new economy, there was a new establishment to that economy. And then doing the Oscar party, which was started off small and terrified that it'd be a failure, and it just sort of grew each year.
It kind of rivals the Oscars itself in terms of its prestige. As you're well aware, lots of people will often just go to the party and not the Oscars themselves. And a lot of people who are big film stars, names that everybody, all of us know, and of course the three of us have gone many times and enjoyed that. And it has become its own thing, which is quite miraculous, really, if you think about it. It's kind of, in some ways, dethroned the Oscars at its own party in a way. Which you mentioned something that's interesting. The idea that America's true export is its culture. And its obsession with celebrity peaked, it reached the peak, a fever pitch, if you will, in the 90s, as my father calls it, celebrity, in a way that I think that he does that just to demean the term itself. And he will claim that that's the actual way that you should pronounce it. But he also says tomato. Here's my point. It occurs to me, and I've long thought this, if we were really smart about wanting to sort of peddle influence around the world in a way that America seems hell-bent on doing, we would, and this would never go down with the people who, with the military-industrial complex, which is, $1 trillion, I think, as of yesterday, $1 trillion a year business. What we could do, and much more efficiently, is if we wanted to influence a certain country and its people, et cetera, all we need to do are, at the time I used to say, drop our DVDs of our TV shows and dumb them down as much as we're dumbed down. If we could pump in Netflix and Amazon Prime and Max to all these countries for free, they would immediately lay down their weapons because they'd become just as dumb as we are, and just as
or as smart.
Or as smart. Thank you for allowing me. But do you know what I mean? I mean, that would seem to me to be the answer to all of it, right?
Well, it's an element of soft power, and we've sort of given up all our soft power in the last 3 months.
Yeah, why we should be pumping them with TikTok and YouTube and paying for it and Starlinking it into their country. And believe me, they'll be like, hey, listen, we got to go. We're going to go and fight on the front line. Like, hang on a second. I just got to watch this thing about a cat teaching itself to read. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we do that in a certain way. I mean, America, if you look at the way most kids dress anywhere in the world, they're wearing, American-style trainers, blue jeans, T-shirts with something written on them, and plaid.
Yeah.
Everybody looks like they're in a writing room, no matter what country you're in, you know?
It's
They
so
do,
true.
and you see rallies. You see these people protesting, and they have effigies of the president and whatever, and they're wearing baseball caps backwards, and they're wearing a Guess jeans sweatshirt, and you're like, wait a second.
Right.
And the irony is completely lost on everybody.
That's our gift to the world.
Well, and sort of expanding on that, Graydon, do you have an opinion about what sort of the current prognosis is for America being able to bear and withstand what some people are saying, kind of the hit that the American brand is taking across the world? Like, do you think after everything settles at whatever point that is, that America will still hold a respectable place in the world?
I think it'll all depend on the next sort of 3 or 4 years. I think it's really tarnished, and we're leaving for Europe on next weekend and for a spell, and we have these little pins made up that we made up for our airmail shop and over in Hudson Street here, and it just
It's a great shop, by the way. I was
shop.
there 2 weeks ago. It's fantastic.
And the little pins, they just say, "I didn't vote for them." And so when
that's
you're
you guys,
at a
huh? I
market
love
in
those.
France or the pub in England, people, it's just because it'll be difficult. It was difficult during the years of George W. Bush as well, and it may take a generation for the so-called American brand to correct.
Graydon, do you want me to send you over a couple of these Canada patches
Love
for
them.
your back?
Love.
They are useful to have. They are really useful.
All of a sudden, everybody who travels is a Canadian. You have Americans practicing their Canadian patois. Because Canadians end every sentence with a question mark. Like an American will say, "I'm going to the store." A Canadian will say, "I'm going to the store." And it's like, as if, like, can I get you something sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wait, great. As far as journalism goes, and kind of to what Jason was saying about Scott Galloway. You know Scott
Oh,
Galloway?
yeah.
Yeah, we got to have him on the show.
He's brilliant.
I know.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
he's great. Very, very smart man. And I saw this clip either again on TikTok or Instagram or something, and he said,
We can take over your house in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
You wouldn't get off the couch. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
exactly. He said nobody wants to read anymore.
That's not true.
Period. And he goes, everybody's getting their information from obviously TikTok or Instagram because nobody wants to sit down and read articles or magazines or books or anything. And that said, people know that, people of influence know that, so they'll just speak to these kids or these people about what it is they should know, and that's how they get their information out.
Okay, well, a counter argument to that would be that the fact is the New York Times has never been more successful. It's never been larger. If you look at a magazine like, say, The Atlantic is exponentially larger and more influential than it was, say, 15 years ago.
But that's a certain demographic, I think.
It is
don't
a
you
certain
think?
demographic, but at the same token, most people watch TV with the Chiron, whatever
Yeah.
With
you
the
professional
captions.
show people call that.
Subtitles.
Subtitles. And young people, I think it's harder and harder, and I have a feeling that most of us, if we were growing up with TikTok, and that we would have read less than. But it also, I have 5 kids, and I know that some of them didn't read that much when they were in their teens, but they're all huge readers now. They're all writers, and so they're all huge readers. You just have to wait a bit, and it'll come
that's
around.
true.
Because
Yeah,
I don't think.
Sean and Jason, what are you guys waiting for? I always say to these guys, anyway,
You know
sorry,
what?
I'm not gonna-
I've got a boring story I won't bore you with about why I'm not a great reader, but I will tell you that.
Does it have to do with you don't know how to read? Is that the headline?
It's top to bottom, left to right. Correct? That there's now you can every article online is now you can listen to
Yes.
it
Right,
you
that's
read
what I'm
it.
saying,
If you and it is something that's helped both of my girls, where they have these large reading assignments for school, and now all those books are audiobooks as well. And so one of the teachers suggested, and I thought it was a great idea, get them the audiobook so they can listen to it as they read it.
I agree.
And that's helpful. And you get some momentum going, you get engaged in the story, and now maybe you don't need that crutch for chapters 5 through 10. You can actually just read the book. And so that's helpful. That's somewhat of a phenomenon where, like you say, the New York Times, Graydon, I would imagine their online business is larger than their print business.
I think it's 9/10 of it, but still, they're reading it online.
But they're still reading. I will say
Yes.
that though, and I do bang this drum quite often. But there is a certain reading it for me. Reading at the end of the day, I find to be such an extreme luxury. And it's very calming because we do live in a digital world. I'm looking at my screen all day. I'm looking at my computer, at my thing, whatever. And to have that moment for 45 minutes every night to read, I do find that it is so calming in this sort of chaotic world in which we live, if nothing else. Apart from the fact that it's interesting and you can be, what all the other great things about reading. But in that way, and I would, especially as we get older, I'm not speaking to you, Graydon. I'm speaking to Sean and Jason.
Because I am
You need to calm down. You need to calm down, both of you.
Yeah, no, I read a lot. I still read a lot online and stuff. But
What do you attribute, Graydon, the not the demise, but the way that magazines have not, you say like the New York Times, for example, never been more profitable, yet it is 9/10 online now. Why did the same not translate for the periodicals?
I mean, the financial crash of 2008 was an issue because the first thing that people could take off their balance off their accounts were advertising, because then you don't have to fire anybody. So the advertising started disappearing. And then even in New York City, there used to be a newsstand at every major intersection, sometimes one across the street from each other. There was a newsstand in every office building. Now, when you see a newsstand on the street, it's often a movie set thing because they're gone. And in office buildings, wherever there was a newsstand, it's usually they're selling gum and flip flops and lotto tickets. So just the fact that you used to be able to see magazines everywhere you went. In Los Angeles, those things in Hollywood with the long walls of magazines.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah. Anyway, that's sort of, they're gone. And I think a lot of companies were late to transfer the way a magazine looks to an electronic version. And the thing about Airmail is that Airmail was put together by magazine people, and we didn't have to work with a legacy brand and then transfer it to the internet or digital. We started it from that. And so I think that made a difference there. And, I read, 20 magazines a month, but I read them all on my iPad.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but before you go too far past Airmail, I just love it's so, and this is probably not the right term, but there's nothing intimidating about the way it comes at you at its initial point, in that it's an email. And there's just like, here's it's basically like looking at the table of contents page.
Were you talking about the subscription to a Vanity Fair? Or?
No, to Airmail.
To Graydon's, Graydon's
sorry.
new thing is this thing called Airmail. So you get this email, and here's like 5 stories that you can click on, that then if you decide to click, then it expands into the story. So there's just like, you don't have to buy a whole magazine, or you don't have to go to a magazine's website or anything.
That's
and
nice.
have to deal with all the advertising and the big pictures and all that. It's just, here's some ideas, some stories. If it's interest to you, click on it. If not, go to the next email. So it's not in your face. The medicine goes down easy, and they happen to be incredible stories. So I don't know. I just think you tacked
that's kind.
to a format that speaks to the current reader's appetite as far as the attention they have to give.
And there's a tonal shift too, right, JB? I mean, there's a tonal shift in it from Vanity Fair to Airmail.
There's no selling element to it that I think people have grown sort of an allergy to, and you're very current on that, which is not surprising coming from somebody like
Well,
you.
and we wanted to look beautiful because I think design is everything these days. And look at the amount of work that goes into an iPhone, say. So as I say, I'd written thank you notes to all my advertisers at Vanity Fair, and I wanted those advertisers in airmail. I didn't want advertising for foot fungus or Geico insurance ads. I wanted much better to have Hermes and Dior and Ralph Lauren.
Right.
So all the advertisers. Once I got Hermes, all the other advertisers felt safe coming in. But it's put out by people from Time Magazine when I worked there, Spy Magazine, and Vanity Fair. That's the core group. And then there's about 8 young people who are in their mid-20s, and they form the core and the future.
Yeah.
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention our mutual friend, the great Linda Wells, whom I adore.
Oh, me too.
Whom I absolutely adore and have known for many years, and she's a big part of Airmail. I'm not telling you, I'm telling our single listener. But I will say that when you were at Vanity Fair, there was a real balance between covering high society profiles, if you will, celebrity and investigative journalism. I remember there's a great article that I've referenced many times and had people read, which was about the Sultan of Brunei's brother that
Love
you guys
that
did.
story.
That story is an incredible story. Still holds up. It's incredible. It's hilarious and it's right on point, and it's scathing and yet very fair. So you do that at Vanity Fair, and then now that you're at Airmail, how would you define what is your relationship? Well, I was going to say what's your relationship with celebrity culture. Before I say that, what was, because you were at the forefront of defining celebrity and covering celebrity culture back at Vanity Fair, and you still are at Airmail in a way, did you, when you were in that position, what kind of incoming calls did you get from people, from publicists and celebrities themselves who wanted you to either amend something that you wrote about them? And I know you already mentioned this about Mr. Tisch, but what celebrities did you get?
Did you ever get a call from that Donald Trump pseudonym?
John Barron.
John Barron.
No, but would get calls from Trump, and once they invented Twitter, he went to town on me. He would call me a sloppy. I was a loser. The Waverly Inn was a failing restaurant. The Oscar party wasn't hot. The magazine was terrible. And but I would take any phone call. But most of doing the covers was actually the least favorite part of the job. But the fact is, show people like you are more attractive than the rest of us. So having a very attractive person on the cover who happened to be talented was a great way of getting the attention of the reader so that they'd pick it up and they wouldn't be embarrassed putting it on their coffee table. But once you got that was sort of like the wrapping, and then the magazine itself was sort of the gift in the box. But most of the calls, we did get a lot of complaints, but they were routed through the office of the people who booked the covers. So I would get occasional complaints. Most of the complaints often would come from staff members. And I remember Christopher Hitchens did a pretty rough story on Mother Teresa. And he accused her of cozying up to dictators and that sort of thing for money. It came out of the blue, and it was wild. And Ronaldo Herrera, who's the husband of Carolina Herrera, who was on the staff, and he's a staunch Catholic, and he came into the office, stormed into the office, and said, "Graydon, you've gone too far this time." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Mother Teresa said, I'm canceling my subscription." I said, "You can't cancel your subscription. You get it for free." And but at Spy Magazine, once we did a story on the 10 most litigious New Yorkers, and Gore Vidal was on that list. And we were listed in the phone book, and he called me up and he said, "I really object to this." I'd never met him before. "I really object to this, and if you don't take my name, if you don't correct that, I'll sue you." And I said, "Wait a minute, if we don't we don't correct that you're one of the most litigious New Yorkers, you're going to sue us." He said, "Yes." And I said, "Don't you get the irony?" And as I was saying that, he just hung up.
That's great.
That's so good.
We'll be right back.
And back to the show.
Your new book, Graydon, is When the Going Was Good, which is out now. And talk a little bit about that. First of all, what a great title.
You're clearly not talking about yourself, because things continue to have a nice arc.
You're
forward.
talking about a cultural shift, yeah? Is that sort of talk a little bit about the book?
No, I think that the you know, if you look back and the 80s, the 90s, and the aughts, with the the 80s and 90s in particular, it was a great time in America. It was very aspirational. The middle class was doing well. We still had 2 World Trade Center towers. You could get on an airplane without stripping down. There was no cell phones or social media, and it was just a much more natural, organic time. And when my wife and I happen to love watching Frasier before we go to bed, because they're like perfectly written plays, and nobody has a cell phone, and there's just something, the same thing with Will and Grace or Friends or I'm trying to think what else, Seinfeld, say, and it was just a great time. And so the 80s, 90s, and aughts, with the exception of, obviously 9/11 and everything that came after that, were a great time for television. A great time for movies, and I think television has overtaken movies now in terms of driving the culture. Magazines do not drive the culture like they used to. It's obviously the things like Instagram and television in a big way.
So do you think we'll ever get back to what you're describing?
No.
Ever? Or a version of it?
A version of it, perhaps. I think young people will come to love magazines the way they love vinyl.
Yeah,
but they'll be specialty magazines. They won't have million circulation, and they will be largely visual. Like you go to like Casa magazines on 8th Avenue over here.
Yeah,
and there's a ton of these big, expensive, $20 perfect bound, thick paper magazines. And they get scooped up by young people, not by people over 30.
There's one of those great. There are about 4 every corner from West Broadway to 6th Avenue. There are 3 or 4 bodegas on every corner. There's that one at the corner of Sullivan and Prince that still has a really robust magazine section. And you know the one I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I've been living half a block from it for the last sort of 6 months, and it's been phenomenal. And I've gone in there. I found myself going in there from time to time and perusing magazines again, and I feel like I'm stepping back in time.
I think it'll come back. I think.
What do you think is the? We talk often about, and we reference it here today, the effect of social media has had on our culture, which to me, in large part, I think has been quite a negative effect. What do you think the future is for things like social media in going forward? Do you think there will be a whiplash or a backlash rather? And
I was going to say I'm hoping that because
I wasn't asking you. I mean,
no, but I want Gray to say because it's funny because you brought up social media because I think we've so overshared our lives in such a massive way and billions of people now we know everything about everybody always that I think. If I'm guessing correctly, we will go the opposite way in 5, 10, 20 years, whatever it is, I don't know, where people will be like, wait, we've all overshared. I'm going to get off it. I think it's cooler to hang out without it. I think it was a long way away, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Graydon, what do you think?
100%. I think, I totally agree with Sean that it is, again, it's a correction. And so the correction now, you share everything, pictures of your children, picture of your children's birthday, them having cake on their nose and all the rest of it. I have 5 kids. None of them have a social media presence and no tattoos either. So that's a major accomplishment. Yeah. But I don't have any social media presence, and I think I know this sounds strange for somebody who's just written a memoir, but I'm a very private person, and I think a private life will have greater currency in maybe 3 to 5 years than it does now, and it'll be considered much cooler than having for young people than having a social media presence.
Greater currency,
I totally agree.
And it gives you more cachet.
Much more cachet. There's a mystery.
Right.
Well, and so Graydon, kind of on this cultural, transition period we find ourselves in, hopefully, and you being the head of a major, media effort. Talk to us about your process with you and your team when you decide what stories it is you're going to go forward with there on Airmail. Is there any agenda is such a pejorative, but do you consider the effect and the move that you guys can make for people as you try to encourage them towards a better, healthier, cultural position, or is it just stories of interest to you guys personally?
I mean, I put the next issue together on a Sunday morning, and it's my favorite process of the week. But by and large, we look for stories that have not appeared in the American papers. It's sort of intended as the weekend edition of a non-existent international newspaper, like the old International Herald Tribune.
Oh, wow.
And the fact is, there's so much to celebrate about life. It's not all about Donald Trump. That we have, it's hard to avoid Donald Trump. I mean, it's certainly worth the effort to avoid him, but it's almost impossible. And so he winds up in there. But it was designed as we started it during the first Trump administration, and I was living in France, and it was designed as a sort of not the same, like every single newsletter you get in America is, it's all basic Boston to Washington Acela corridor news, and we have very little of that. There's enough of that to go around. So ours is very international. Stories have to be just interesting and things that reflect changes in the culture, hopefully for the better, not always. And just sort of spirited writing, that could be funny, but informative, and some new, fresh voices. And it's just something that you can wake up Saturday morning and read it without completely hanging your head in despair over the news of the day.
Right.
I took the New York Times alerts off my phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every 45 seconds is like the end of the world, and it was just,
I know. Same here, and I've been doing my best to try to avoid it.
Totally. Same. I did too.
You've been for lack of a better word, a tastemaker for decades. It's just simply true. What cultural trends are there any that you miss most, or and what do you think? What cultural trends do you think are wildly overrated now?
Well, the social media, as I think Sean points out, that it will have a swing back because the not sharing everything will be a value both in your life and your personality and your interactions with others. I think kindness would be a wonderful addition back in the world, because I think the sort of wanton cruelty you see coming out of Washington it sort of reflects badly in us, even though most of us are not like that. And I don't think it's going to get better soon, but I think it will get better. And
I think so too.
He's a very strange man. I've known him for 40 years. He's both loved me and hated me.
Yeah.
And he reads young, whereas he reads like a young 78, whereas Biden read like an old 81.
I know.
Right,
you gotta give him that credit. It's hard not to.
I know.
Graydon, at the great risk of offending you, okay?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh boy. Oh no, this is his favorite.
Can you please walk me through the genesis of your incredible and impressive hair?
Oh my God! We'll take a good look at it because it's disappearing as we speak.
No. What it is it's one of my favorite things about you. Always has been. To the extent you're comfortable, can you please walk us through how it started and what the process is to is there a pick involved?
Yeah, because put a baton in your hand, you can conduct the New York Phil.
I just fucking love it so much.
No, I had this hair, and it's the same hair I have on the cover of my book when I was 30. And it's sort of, in the old days, when I didn't have much money, you get it all cut off and you wait 3 months and it would grow back.
Right.
Now I get it cut every month or so. And it's gone gray. And if I'm out in Los Angeles and I go and there's a lot of people my age in the room, I'm the only man with gray hair, which I find really amazing. How is that possible?
It has something to do with the water out here, I think.
The styling of it is just, I just love it because it's just a perfect juxtaposition between this incredible place of influence and success and sophistication that you hold, and it's sort of offset. I mean, it's like Einstein, like Einstein was like the greatest brain ever, yet
he had great hair.
He counterbalanced it with his.
Pete Davidson once said, when Pete Davidson told a friend of my daughter, he said, "Your dad, he looks like and with that hair, he looks like he should be on money." Which I think is the highest compliment anybody's ever paid.
Well, it sort
awesome.
of, there's a confidence to it, which is intoxicating. I must admit.
That's code for what a fool who would do that.
No, not at all. No.
Anybody who says how brave of you to wear that or something like that.
The opposite. The opposite. Well, Graydon, I'll leave you with this. And again, we pointed out all the great things: Spy Magazine, Vanity Fair, Air Mail, and now your book, When the Going Was Good. After
and don't
decades,
forget the Waverly Inn.
And the Waverly Inn.
The Waverly Inn,
the
Waverly Inn, which is, I must admit, I haven't been to in a long time. I love the Waverly Inn.
You can make a reservation through my email.
Is that true?
Yeah, I do all the seating. Okay. I do the seating every night. We'll treat you well.
No,
fantastic!
Really?
Oh
my God, what a dream!
I'm coming back.
Don't put it on your website or anything like that.
No. Oh, believe me, I'm going to guard it with my life.
I will tell you, and this is probably won't be much of a compliment because I'm probably one in a long line. But I just finished doing this this show, and it's about an incredibly beautiful, hip. Restaurant on the Lower East Side, and
called Black Rabbit.
Shots of inside of Waverly Inn was up on our production designer's board, and we basically modeled the aesthetic in there is just so incredibly beautiful. So
and built down in Atlanta.
No, actually, we shot it in New York. We built an entire restaurant at Steiner.
Oh my God.
But it'd be great to do. Let's do something like now that we have Graden here. Like, let's do a thing where we get Thoreau banned from the Waverly Inn forever. Like, you know what I mean? And don't let him know.
Don't see Justin Thoreau anymore.
You're always busy. You're full. So that you can never get a fucking
Con
table.
Ed has shut us down. Yes.
Yeah,
but when we opened it, we wouldn't take reservations from the 203 area code because that's Greenwich and that's where all the hedge fund guys were. So we didn't want them.
That's so good.
So they'd make a reservation. We'd say, "Oh, sorry, Con Ed." Like they're cut off.
Listen, Graydon, you're speaking our language. I have said many times nobody is more responsible for the destruction of this planet than sort of private equity guys and money guys and bankers. They have absolutely
except for Dan Dees.
Except for Dan Dees, who is one of the all-time great guys.
One of the all-time great guys. Double D.
But I want to ask you this: what, as a sort of parting shot, if you will, what would you like your? God, this is a tough one to answer. I'm sure. What would you like your legacy to be, if you've even thought it in those terms? As a Canadian, you probably never have.
No, I mean, first of all, I'm really proud of being a Canadian, and especially now, I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I like Mark Carney, and I think that you just want to leave. If you got to a beach and it's filled with candy wrappers, my inclination would be, and I'm sure for you guys as well, that to sort of clean up the candy wrappers and try to leave something in better shape than when you got there. And in a large part, we do that through our children. And so my kids, I'm very proud of them, and they're truly good humans and funny and well read, and that's. Because that's your legacy, because they're going to go on after you're turned to dust and all the rest of it. And leave a modest, body of sort of decent work behind you.
Oh, what a great answer.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Graydon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Such an honor. I mean, I'm really,
the honor is ours.
Thank
you.
you.
We've been such fans, and we've spoken about you before. The three of us have, and we've been just a fan of everything you've done from Spy to Vanity Fair to Air Mail, and now your book, When the Going Was Good, is out now for all our listener. So I
all our listener,
all our listener.
Tell him to get there quickly. Then, or her, or them.
I encourage him or her or them or whoever it is to go out and get it today. Graydon, we wish you nothing but continued success, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Graydon.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, nice
Great
to meet
honor.
you, Graydon. Yeah.
Okay, pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Pal.
Bye.
Bye, buddy. Nice guest, Willie. That is. Now, again, every time we have somebody that is not one of these big fancy A-list celebs whom we love,
Yeah.
I just love talking to other folks. It's
Well,
great.
I mean, think about it, and it is true. Not only, and Jay, you said it, I said it, Sean, you said a version of it that he was a tastemaker. If only because he was on the front lines of reporting what was happening culturally, whether it was a film or television or art or media, et cetera.
And Vanity
because
Fair.
of that position, he ends up in a lot of ways steering culture because of what he decides to report on.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm
what's
saying about him.
what
And
deserves
Lorne
attention.
Michaels is still doing it. Like, who's hosting Saturday Night Live and who's a musical guest will tell you who's the top of the zeitgeist.
He and Lorne are still doing it. And again, I should be pointed out that these are Canadians, and I think that there's something to that. That
Fresh
Canadians,
eyes.
well, Canadians, we just inhabit a slightly higher place in the space.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Are you going over a canyon?
No,
we're losing you.
No, I've got full bars.
Yeah.
You shut off this mic. You turn off this mic.
Well, you know what? There is this, and I've spoken about this before. As Canadians, we grew up. We are so culturally close and geographically close, so we are kind of observers of American culture in that way, and very close. And so we do.
Wait, what do you think that is now, though? If it's not Vanity Fair, maybe it still is Vanity Fair that is the quote tastemaker. Like, where do people look? Because it seems so fragmented now.
Yeah.
Well,
you're right.
well, you know what? It's much more. I think that it's been divided into these different pieces. Vanity Fair was much more of a catch-all back at the time,
Right.
that inhabited a big space. I don't know if there's anything that
Unless
inhabits
this is
big.
airmail, which I didn't.
I think
know
a lot
of.
of podcasts do.
That's true.
Maybe SmartLess, maybe the SmartLess podcast.
You know, I haven't heard that, but I did hear about it, and I hear it's not great.
The SmartLess, one of the, it's
a
not
little
great.
overrated is what I'm hearing.
Very overrated, and these guys, they swear too much. They interrupt people, but you know what? They do have really down pat. Bye. Reference our own bye as the bye.
Bye. Oh, nice,
you mean how they say goodbye at the end of each
Yes,
episode?
there you go. Bye. Meta much. SmartLess is 100% organic and artisanally handcrafted by Bennett Barbaco, Michael Grant Terry, and Rob Armjarf.
SmartLess.